Westbrook. You love the Philadelphia Eagles. Let me get a hell yeah!
What's going on, guys? Welcome to another edition of Party on Broad. It is Dibes, Mr. Crockpot on Twitter. Joining me today is our hockey expert, Tyson. Follow him on Twitter at Quibell Tyson. How you doing, man?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing well. Today we are talking about Mr. Isaac Ratcliffe. We're going to review his season in 2019-2020. We're going to talk about how he projects with or without the Flyers next year and beyond. Dude, Tyson, talk to us a little bit about Isaac Ratcliffe and how he performed in 2019.
Yeah, I would say he had a tough transition to the AHL. And he was potentially one that I was a little bit higher on in terms of how I thought he would transition, because he's listed at 6'6", between 220 and 230, depending on who you talk to. So he's not exactly a small player. And not to say that the big players automatically transition well, but he's an excellent skater. He has really good hands, and he put up points in the majority of seasons that he played in the OHL. So he had that combination where you kind of thought maybe he'll jump into a top six role immediately, but that just really wasn't the case. It took him a while to kind of get his legs wet this year. It took him a while to kind of gain some consistency very early on, as I was tracking his game both in video and looking at up statistically. There was times when I was like, oh my gosh, he only has how many points? Now some of that's usage, but he had a tough transition. However, before COVID-19 hit, he was showing massive amounts of improvement and consistency offensively. And so we saw some improvement there. I think had we maybe got to see him finish the year, a full year, and then got to see him play in the playoffs, that might have been a different story if Lehigh made it. But, in general, I think it was a tough transition.
Yeah, you talked a little bit about his strengths. I mean, obviously, you got to start with that frame, man. Incredible size, 6'6" frame. Tyson, what are some of the strengths of Isaac Ratcliffe if he plays for the Flyers? Tell us.
Yeah, so the one that stands out for me outside of his strength is his hands are like a smaller player's hands would be. And so when I would watch him in the OHL frequently, he would go in against defenders that were already smaller than him, and they would think or assume he would just going to power by them, try to cut around the outside, which is fairly common. But sometimes he would do these like in and out plays where he'd put the puck kind of in between their skates. They'd kind of be surprised, like, oh, I'm trying to just move him to the outside. What's he doing? Assuming that's what he's going to do. And then he just cut to the inside and do these moves that smaller, more agile players can do. And so that to me is why he's still ranked as high on my prospect list, even with that tough transition game, because it's rare to have that combination. To be 6'6" and have hands like that is nuts. So I think that I'm not concerned about him. This was a tough transition year. I don't think he'll make the Flyers next year either, but I think that that's his biggest strength is his hands and his size.
Fantastic. So let's move on to weaknesses. Like, what are some of the main weaknesses of Isaac Ratcliffe? We are talking about the number 5 prospect for Tyson Quibell. Go ahead, man.
Yeah, so he struggled a little bit on transition games. So in other words, when the puck was moving, so if his team had the puck and they lost it, sometimes he just looked like he was a little slow to react in moments. And so some of that is just getting used to a faster pace, but he needs to just work on his awareness in transition. Another thing I think I would just add to as well is just take more shots, generate more shots. He's done that okay, but I would love to see him generate more, and then continue to use his frame more. He uses it okay, but I think that if he leaned on guys a little bit more, that could go a long way. So those things are all easily improvable, I think. Some of it's just the transition game. He'll get used to it.
All right, cool. So let's talk about 2020, next year and beyond, man. You already mentioned it. You don't think he's going to be on the Philadelphia Flyers roster, but what do you want to see from this guy moving forward?
Yeah, so next year I would like to see him in a consistent top 6 role in Lehigh. There's always a chance, with players out of camp, they could make the Flyers, especially if they don't do camps till December, like they're talking about potentially now. But I think that just seeing him put up numbers offensively in a top 6 role is where he needs to go to kind of be on that developmental curve to potentially be a Flyer for 2021, 2022.
Alrighty, that is Tyson Quibell. Check him out on Twitter at Quibell Tyson, our resident hockey expert here at the Painted Lines. Thank you, Tyson, for joining. For Tyson, for myself, thanks for watching, guys. Stay awesome.
Sixers win it! Wow!
Oh man, and being just posterized Russell Westbrook. You love the Philadelphia Eagles. Let me get it.